For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to...
Hi, folks. Join us now for another Brooklyn ball game here at Ebbets Field. Yes, sir. Posted right back to bring you the Dodgers again as they take on the Boston Braves here at Ebbets Field, Brooklyn, USA. This is the old redhead, Red Barber, saying a hi, hello to you. Oh, man, it couldn't be a nicer afternoon.
Good morning, y'all, or whenever you're deciding to join us here on this Super Bowl Sunday. This is our annual tradition that we're trying to keep alive. It is the Salute to Baseball Super Bowl Sunday here on Braves Country Radio. And if you're not familiar with why we do this, well, there was a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Schwartz, and Jonathan Schwartz dedicated Super Bowl Sundays for over 40 years by playing baseball-influenced songs. He did this on New York City area radio, and I learned about it several years back and talked about doing it. A few years ago, we decided to begin the Salute to Baseball on Super Bowl Sunday. And so that's what we try to do. Now, what I do is a little different. Jonathan Schwartz just basically wanted to say that he was ready for baseball season to start, so he would play music on radio, and I can't do that here on YouTube and other services because they'll bang me for not having the rights to the songs that I'm playing, and it's really not worth the headache of going through and trying to get credited for them, etc., etc. So what we do instead, because I am a baseball historian, we talk about the history of the game, but get you ready for pitchers and catchers reporting. In fact, pitchers and catchers are reporting in just a couple of days for the Atlanta Braves and several other teams. Everybody's having their pitchers and catchers report this week, and it's a little earlier in the calendar than usual, and that is because you've got the World Baseball Classic going on this year in 2023. You also have spring training starting a week from Friday, so that's going to be February 21st. Atlanta and a lot of the other teams won't start until Saturday, February 22nd. But they're going to start their spring training a little early because the WBC is going to come around. And the next thing you know, these guys got to get ready. And of course, we already know about some of the injuries that some of these teams have already been announced, including Atlanta. And there will be position battles. There will be interesting things to unfold during the spring training season that begins in under a couple of weeks. And it'll roll through the end of March. We'll have the WBC here for you on Braves Country Radio. It should just be a really fun spring to be a baseball fan. The team for the USA is loaded this year, so we're excited about that. And once again, baseball has its true villain in the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you're a Dodger fan, you might get upset by that news, but the entire world of baseball is now going to blame the Dodgers when baseball goes on strike next year. But this year, I thought it would be fun to go into some of the great calls in baseball history. Most of these are radio calls, but I did grab some television calls as well. If it was an elite call, it's in here. Now, I'm not saying I grabbed all the elite calls because you just simply don't have enough time. We're trying to keep this to around an hour. Without further introduction, we're going to go ahead and play one of the great calls in MLB history, and then we'll talk about it. Let's take you all the way back to 1986 with the great Vin Scully on the call. The game was on the line. It was Game 6 of the World Series. Boston looking for their first World Series championship since 1918. And there had already been a ton of action in the game. So we're going to take you a few plays before the famous one that we all know and have memorized it by heart. At this stage, the Red Sox are still clinging to a one-run lead. It's been a seesaw affair all night long. We're in the 10th inning, and the Mets are at bat. They are at home, so they're trying to walk it off, and the Red Sox are just one out away from winning their first World Series since 1918. They had a 2-run lead. It's now just a 1-run lead here in the 10th inning. There was 2 outs and a 2-run lead, and the Red Sox are trying to push back the hands of fate.
You have the tying run 90 feet away in Kevin Mitchell. and the possible winning run at first in Ray Knight. And here's Mookie. Fouled off. 55,078 here at Shea, and they have really been put through the ringer. Fouled away, 2-2. Fouled away again. Fouled away. Tension mounts some more with 2 out in the 10th. 5-4 Red Sox. Ray Knight at first. Kevin Mitchell at third. 2-2 to Mookie Wilson. And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base. To Mookie Wilson, and he pops it in the air, foul off to the right. Gedman coming over. He will not have a play. That was a wild pitch.
Way inside, Gedman reaches for it, can hardly move as far as shifting, and it gets by him. A wild pitch, apparently not near where he was looking for the pitch.
5-5 in a delirious 10th inning. Line drive foul.
And Marty Barrett was out of position because they had Knight really picked off, but Stanley didn't see him there. Because had Mookie hit just a weak ground ball, Barrett was way out of position because they had a good chance to get Knight at second base.
Can you believe this ball game at Shea?
Oh, brother.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. If one picture is worth 1,000 words, you have seen about 1,000,000 words. But more than that, you have seen an absolutely bizarre finish to Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. The Mets are not only alive, they are well, and they will play the Red Sox in Game 7 tomorrow.
What a great call that was. And you look at it, Vin Scully had some great lines in there. Now, I guess I misremembered it because you hear it over and over for years and years and years, and you don't realize it's been edited and clipped. But the great line where he says, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is worth 1,000,000 words. There was actually about a 3-minute break in between that and the famous call, the ball rolling under Buckner's legs. There was stone silence from the booth. He was just letting the game breathe. And you can do that in television, right? Because you can let the picture do the talking for you. If he was doing this on radio, and Vin Scully came up on radio, so he was a brilliant radio man. But if Vin Scully was doing this game on radio, he would have to be describing what's going on the whole time. He never would have had that famous line because in all likelihood, in that 3-minute silence in the booth, he was probably jotting down his line. So it's a great line, but you also have to realize you do get an advantage when you're doing it with television, with video as your friend. And Vin Scully's one, and I'll tell you what, that was my favorite combo growing up, was Joe Garagiola as the color man and Scully as the play-by-play. I cut my teeth listening to play-by-play through Vin Scully, because remember, he did NFL. He did the famous catch, in the back of the end zone for the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys years and years ago. That was back in, 81, and he was already an established broadcaster. He came over to the Brooklyn Dodgers and was brought up by the great Red Barber. That's who you heard at the beginning of this broadcast was Red Barber, and he kind of led the charge for a lot of guys. And it's such an interesting broadcasting tree when you start connecting the dots with this guy, ended up bringing this guy up, this guy learned from this guy, et cetera, et cetera. They're branched all throughout, not just baseball, but there were a lot of college football, Southern college football legends that learned the ropes off of New York baseball. From Red Barber, I can take you all the way to John Ward for the University of Tennessee. And John Ward ended up teaching and mentoring a ton of other great college football broadcasters, and he learned what he learned through Red Barber and Vin Scully. Larry Munson, University of Georgia, comes to mind. He was one of the big ones that John Ward brought along. but they all come from the New York baseball of the 1940s, 1950s, because that's really where it all began. And then college football quickly learned that they needed to have their kind of brand. And so to me, the best play-by-play radio in the history of all sports radio, baseball is number one because it's such a much better game to bring to you in radio because there's so many things happening in between plays, strategy and whatnot. But it also comes through on the fact that the game itself doesn't lose anything when you're on radio. Football can lose something because it really is more of a visual game. But you can't paint the picture that you can in radio. But if I'm ranking it, it's Major League Baseball, top dog in all of play-by-play. And then I'm going college football because most of those guys stay there for a long time. Number 3 on the list is going to be the NFL. But a lot of your NFL guys end up moving on to television, so it's really hard to get a guy that stays with you for a long, long time. There have been legends that have done it. Heck, the great Gene Deckerhoff just hung up his microphone for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and for years he did double duty. Saturday nights he was in Tallahassee doing Florida State football. Sunday mornings he was wherever the Bucs were, giving you the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he even called Florida State baseball and basketball during the NFL offseason. But those to me are the tops. Basketball is really difficult, and I did it a little bit in college, but there's just so much going on in a basketball game. It's such a fast-moving game, just like hockey, that it really it's just not as enjoyable on the radio. And you almost need the visual with basketball. It can be done, but there's so few great basketball broadcasters out there. All right, the next one up on the list. Let's go back to 1951, where the New York Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers were in a playoff after a long pennant race. Back when there were true pennant races, the winner of your league, the National League or American League, the winner of your league won the pennant, and they went on to the World Series. And that's back when the pennant really meant something. Nowadays, people more focus on who can win the World Series, but I still say that Major League Baseball is the last sport where getting to the championship still means something. Winning a pennant will always mean something in Major League Baseball, even if the casual fan doesn't understand it. But this was back when you only got one team per league, and the Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers, New York Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers, they had fought their way to where this was the final game of the two-team playoff. They finished in a tie. Winner take all. The Dodgers have the lead in the 9th inning. About that plays the legends that came out of this. Dodgers pitcher Ralph Branca never backed off from a statement that he and other Dodger players made. They believed that the Giants were stealing signs, and that's what led to that dramatic 3-run homer in the 9th inning. They entered the 9th trailing 4-2, and with 2 runners on base, Thompson slapped it over the left field wall, and the place went bonkers. That game was so big, there were servicemen that were over in Korea. Remember, that was the beginning of the Korean War. There were service members over in Korea that were listening to that game through Armed Forces radio. And that was the 3rd game of the playoffs. They'd each split the first 2. That was back when if you ended up with a tie in the standings, you played a best of 3 because of the fact that there were no other playoffs, so you weren't worried about, well, are we going to stretch this out too long? And that's why pennants meant as much as they did. And of course, they got the famed nickname Shot Heard Round the World. It's from the 1837 poem Concord Hymn by Ralph Waldo Emerson about the American Revolutionary War. And I would dare to say that Bobby Thompson's Shot Heard Round the World may be a little more famous and had bigger consequences. Because if you don't realize how diehard Giants and Dodger fans were in Brooklyn, New York, you don't know baseball, my friend. All right, let's take you back to 1934. This is the Tigers and Yankees. We'll talk about this on the other side, but I just wanted you to get an idea of where they were in the world of radio baseball. Remember, it had only been around 13 years at this point. The first call ever was 1921 on KDKA in Pittsburgh. So this is just 13 years later. Tigers, Yankees, 1934. The golden era of radio baseball.
Dandy day for a ball game. And a nice crowd out here to see the Yankees making their last appearance at Maven Field for 1934. We hope before the ball game gets over that Babe Ruth gets in it. I'd like to see Babe take one more swing this season. but his leg is pretty sore. He takes a bit of batting practice, but not very much. Manager Cochran's Charlie horse is better, but still not cured. That's why he's out of today's game. The wind is blowing toward left center field. Lanup and Lou Gehrig is the batter with the bases loaded and one out. The crowd is getting rather tense. The score is 2-1 in favor of the Yankees. This is the third inning. Marbury is raising quite a bit of dust out there as he kicks the ground around to get better footing. He's been off in his pitching. His control has been bad. Here's the pitch to Gehrig, and it's high outside, ball one. A high, hard one. Gets the sign from Hayworth, starts the motion. Here's the pitch. A bounder over second base for a hit into center field. Broca scoring, followed by Roth. Selkirk reaching third. Makes the score 4-1 in favor of the Yanks. That seems to be all for Marbury. Time is called, and Hamlin comes in from the bullpen to relieve Marbury, who has allowed 4 runs and 6 hits in 2 1/3 innings.
How cool is that? 1934. The guy's talking about Babe Ruth. He's talking about Lou Gehrig. That was from WWJ in Detroit. His name is Ty Tyson, nicknamed Tyrone Tradition. And he was the Tigers' play-by-play radio man from 1927 to 1942. And they've had a long, storied tradition of announcers in Detroit, Michigan. Of course, the Tigers being one of the oldest teams in the league, but you go back to Ernie Harwell, which I think most people are familiar with him, and you've also had a lot of big names that did it for a little while, but had big names because they played the game, like Mel Ott, like Al Kaline. So I thought that was a pretty cool one, taking it back to yesteryear, 1934, Detroit, Michigan. Okay, here's another cool one. I don't think I have to lay this game out for y'all, but I thought it'd be great to go back down to memory lane. This one is the famous Joe Carter knocking the Philadelphia Phillies out of the World Series. Game 6, 1993, and Joe Carter does the rest. And you know, Mitch Williams never recovered from this.
Here's the pitch on the way, a swing and a belt, left field, way back, Blue Jays win it! The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Now we go to August 15th, 2012. Seattle Mariners, Felix Hernandez, nicknamed the King, King Felix. We go to his final call by Rick Rizzo on Seattle radio as the King throws his perfect game.
Seattle Mariners, Felix Hernandez, the 2-2. He got him! 34 years, 119 games. It's finally happened. A perfect game by a Seattle Mariner. It was done by the King, Felix Hernandez. He puts his name in the record books with a perfecto.
Now we go to one of the greatest dates in Atlanta Braves history, April 8th, 1974. Fulton County Stadium. Milo Hamilton on the call from WSB Radio. Henry Aaron is sitting on 714, needing one to break the Babes record.
Sitting on 714. Here's the pitch by Downing. Swinging. There's a drive into left center field. That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone. It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron. The fireworks are going. Henry Aaron is coming around third. His teammates are at home plate, and listen to this crowd. A sellout crowd is cheering Henry Aaron, the home run king of all time. 7:15.
That's one of the first clips that I remember as a kid hearing. Obviously, I wasn't listening to the game. I was just an infant. But the idea that that was the call, and I can't tell you how many times I saw it being replayed on TBS as a kid growing up and hearing the call, and then hearing eventually, because you always got the Milo Hamilton call, and then hearing the Vin Scully call, which is pretty good itself, but I really prefer the Milo Hamilton call.
The outfield deep and straight away. Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron.
So like I was saying, I like Vin Scully's call, but I feel like Milo's it really captured the moment more. I think Vin Scully also realizing he wasn't a Braves guy. He was covering the Dodgers that the Braves happened to be playing when the record was broken. And I think he was trying to get the entire picture into that one call, because he probably figured people would look back on it for years and years and years. But Milo's, to me, really captured the actual moment, whereas Vin Scully's almost feels more like one that was like retrospective as opposed to engulfed into the moment. Now here's the call from Michael Kay on the Yes Network, and I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he is. I really think he's a very good television broadcaster. I know he can be a little corny at times, but honestly, I've always thought he was very good, and he gets a lot of hate because, remember, he also has a talk show in New York, so he'll get into these controversies where most play-by-play guys normally aren't involved because they're just bringing you the game. But we'll go back to 2014, and it's against the Baltimore Orioles. This is September 25th, and I remember this game vividly because they put it on national TV. I want to say MLB Network. I don't remember, but I do remember them breaking into coverage because it was the end of an era. Derek Jeter, he still had a few games to play left in Fenway, but this was the last game at home. And though the Yankees were not in the playoff hunt, it was just a dramatic walk-off victory that only Derek Jeter could supply. Here's the call.
Well, the script is there. The last page is in Derek's hands. Meek deals. Base hit to right field. Here comes Richardson. Here's the throw from Markakis. Richardson is safe. Derek Jeter ends his final game with a walk-off single. Derek Jeter, where fantasy becomes reality. Did you have any doubt?
Okay, this next one we go back to the World Series in 1960, Game 7. The Pirates, who were in huge underdogs in this series. In fact, the 4 games they lost, they were blown out, but they found a way to win the 7-game World Series, the best of 7, against the heavily favored New York Yankees. And this is the final call where the ball goes over the wall, the famous going, going, gone. Chuck Thompson, who called games nationally, but was more well known for the Baltimore Orioles and Baltimore Colts, where he spent the majority of his broadcasting career. But this is him in the booth, and he is sitting alongside the famous Mel Allen. Yes, that Mel Allen. Mel Allen was a broadcaster for the New York Yankees, but remember, he was also the famous voice you grew up on for This Week in Baseball. Where did Mel Allen come from? He's from Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, graduated from the University of Alabama. And when I talk about all these guys cut their teeth with all the Southern broadcasters that were mentored by the New York baseball broadcasters, Mel Allen is one of them as well. He's quiet in this broadcast, but realize he's sitting right next to, and he's letting the game breathe as you should. The play-by-play man carries the load, and then you would interject later on, but you don't step on the play-by-play guy's call. That's one of the golden rules in broadcasting.
There's a drive at the deep left field. Look out now. That ball is going down. World Series another. And the left field hits it over the left field fence for a home run, and the Pirates win it 10-9 and win the World Series.
Okay, so speaking of the World Series, speaking of memorable moments in the World Series. To heck with the television call, because I don't think it does it justice. Let's go to 2004, right after the Red Sox had come back from a 3-0 deficit against the Yankees in the ALCS. They go on to sweep the St. Louis Cardinals and bring home their first world title in 86 years. And it wasn't just the fact that they had not won it in 86 years. It was the unbelievable heartbreak that the Red Sox fans had gone through for years and years and decades. And it was finally over.
2 out in the 9th inning. Here on the banks of the Mississippi River, the Red Sox need 1 more out. Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands to first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions. For the first time in 86 years, the Red Sox have won baseball's world championship. Can you believe it? The Red Sox now mobbing Keith Folk and one another between home and first. And as Ned Martin said back in 1967, pandemonium on the field.
Honest Engine, this isn't one of my favorite calls, but it is historic. It was the first championship in Chicago Cubs history in 108 years, and I felt like he did a good job at the beginning of the call, but then it leaves itself a little flat, and he does better later on, but we won't play that whole thing. But here's the actual moment where the Chicago Cubs, remember, this is a nip and tuck game. This game wasn't a blowout. If this game was a blowout, I would understand kind of. Now, he wasn't really mailing it in, but I would say that he wasn't exuberant at the moment of the championship. But here we go. Chicago Cubs, Cleveland Indians, 2016.
A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it and throw to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. The Cubs come pouring out of the dugout, jumping up and down like a bunch of delirious 10-year-olds. The Cubs have done it.
We're going to go back to 2001, and this is a television call, and I thought Buck did a very good job. I know he gets a lot of hate sometimes, but in the big moments, he usually delivers, and this was such a big moment. 2001, the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, all that it was entailed. Remember, we're just coming off of 9/11, and so you had a lot of the people in the country who were just pulling for New York City, but then you had a lot of the people in the country who were not pulling for the Yankees because, let's face it, they were the dynasty at the time, and America loves an underdog. So you had everything here, and then you had Mariano Rivera, the best closer to ever truly get that moniker, a true closer, a one-inning guy. He is on the mound to try to stop the Arizona Diamondbacks, but remember, he'd been used quite a bit in the series, and he was wearing down. And here we go. The final at bat. Luis Gonzalez is at the plate, and the winning run just 90 feet away. So they've got the infield drawn in, because if the infield is drawn back, it's going to be a soft liner caught in the glove of Derek Jeter, and who knows what happens after that. But here we go.
The chance of a lifetime for Luis Gonzalez. 2-2, bottom of the ninth. Game 7 of the World Series. Bases loaded. Floater, center field. The Diamondbacks are world champions.
All right, now we go to 1952, the New York Yankees radio. This is Mel Allen, and he's doing the call. This is the 4th consecutive World Championship in a row. And I wouldn't say it's a great ending to a World Series call, but I love the visual when he's talking about Yogi Berra leaping into the arms of his pitcher, because you get that visual. Of course, we've seen it so many times over the years in real video in numerous championships that the Yankees won. Yogi Berra that was always his go-to. He would go in. Nowadays, the catcher's probably catching the pitcher, but then Yogi Berra was so much shorter than most of the players on the team, he would go diving and almost Spider-Man-like grab a hold of his pitcher, and you saw it several times in the World Series. I think the one that I remember the most is the Don Larson perfect game, but this is the 1952 call, Mel Allen, New York Yankee radio.
As a fly ball hit out to left field, Woodling getting under it. And the Yankees are champions. And look at Barrow. Piggyback
the Yankees for the fourth consecutive time. And boy, they're pounding that cassava for a tremendous relief job. Look at them go.
We now go back to 1999, where the Yankees knock out the Braves in the World Series. Really wasn't a competitive series. But I wanted to play this one because I thought John Sterling did one of the best jobs of ending a season for a team that won a championship. I love this call, and just the way he delivers it and realizes the moment and still gives you his signature, the Yankees win. That's what he's known for years and years and years, and he gives it to you in a championship setting.
Cameras flashing, and Rivera cool as a cucumber. The 1-0. Swung on, hit in the air to left center. Bernie trots over. Curtis is there. Curtis makes the catch. Ball game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win. The New York Yankees, for the second straight year, for the third time in the last 4 years, and for the 25th time in their glorious history, have once again reached the pinnacle of the sports world.
And this is an underrated duo when you talk about having somewhat of a national stage, WGN. And I'm not talking about the great Harry Carey. Remember, Steve Stone was with Harry Carey as well in Chicago for years. But this is Chicago White Sox baseball and the Hawk with Steve Stone. This is just kind of a mashup of a couple of calls that I found, and just the delivery that the Hawk would give on TV. He absolutely had the flair for the dramatics, and I think he's extremely underrated on the national stage. But Chicago White Sox fans will tell you that he was their golden voice. He was their Skip Carey, and he was actually a little more animated and more emphasis on the big plays, though Carey had his moments as well.
That ball here way back. He looks up. You can't put it on the ball. Yes. What a play by Wise. Mercy. A great catch by Dwayne Wise.
It's unbelievable as Wise goes back into the wall knowing he has no room to spare. He goes up over the wall and then juggles it before corralling it.
This franchise doesn't have a lot of big moments in their recent history as well. But I really love the catchphrase for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it's something that obviously I'll never be able to call unless we cover a Pirates game on the out-of-town doubleheader. And Pirates are going to have to be a lot more competitive for me to do so. But I love the catchphrase of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And this is their television call, but it's still great. Every time the Pittsburgh Pirates get a W, it's so symbolic that they give the call, "Raise the Jolly Roger." What a visual, even in your mind's eye.
Raise the Jolly Roger. The series even in a game apiece. 1972 and in the early 90s. And they're going to get a ground ball from Morneau on to first and raise the Jolly Roger 3 straight years. Got him with cheese. Light it up and raise the Jolly Roger in front of a sellout crowd.
Okay, these next couple of calls grabbed a couple of good ones from Tom Hamilton. If you're not familiar with him, he was broadcaster for the play-by-play guy for the Cleveland Indians for years, and one of the better ones, one of the ones that I really liked, one of the ones that when every time I got a chance, I tried to catch Cleveland Indians baseball on radio. And here's a couple of the Tom Hamiltons. We're going to be sharing some of his stuff on our clips this year in Braves country. I found a really good documentary about Tom Hamilton, but here's just a little bit of sample of some of the great calls that he has made in the past. The first one is Jim Thome.
Jim Thome at the plate facing the right-hander Don Wengert. Winds it up, delivers. Thome drills one high and deep to center. Away, way back. Gone deep into the picnic plaza, and that might have even got out of the ballpark. Jim Thome has just left Jacobs Field onto Eagle Avenue. That will take 2 tape measures. The drive down 2-1. Cabrera the runner at second. Santana the runner at first. Nobody out. 11th inning. Game tied at 8. Frazier's ready. The pitch. Pitch swung on. Belted to deep left. It is gone! A walk-off 3-run home run for Ryan Rayburn. And a mobbing coming up at home plate. So much for a bunt. Ryan Rayburn with a line shot 3-run home run to the porch. The Indians' 7th walk-off win of the year. The Indians' 3rd walk-off win via the home run.
This one will take us back to 2019, and this is a great call. But this season will always haunt me as a Braves fan. I'll tell you why. If you remember Game 5 of the NLDS Braves-Cardinals, that was the early game. The play that I'm about to play for you is the late game. It was Game 5 of the Dodgers versus Nationals. And the Dodgers were a team that the Braves could not get past at that time. But they owned the Washington Nationals. They owned them that season. They owned every bit of the Washington Nationals. And had the Braves beaten the Cardinals in that Game 5, they would have faced the Nationals with home field advantage. And there's no doubt in my mind that the NLCS ends up being another pennant for the Atlanta Braves. And the Braves may have beaten the 2019 Houston Astros, though I'm not sure. The Nationals, all in all, were a better team than Atlanta in 2019, but we had their number. So when Fultonevich spits the bit, the Braves give up 10 runs in that first inning, yada, 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 the whole 9 yards. It eliminated any chance that the Braves had of going to that World Series. But if they had won that Game 5, I'm convinced that they win the pennant, and they probably win the 2019 World Series. And would that have set off a chain of several championships? Because you get over that hump early. We know what happened in 21. Do they take advantage of things in 2020, 2022, 2023? Years when they had the team to do it, but didn't seem to have the confidence. So anyways, here's the play, the big play. This was the dagger that knocked out the Dodgers. Howie Kendrick, Jacksonville, Florida kid, who had a pretty darn good career as a middle infielder, bit of a journeyman until he really found himself a home when he got to the Washington Nationals. And he is the one that cemented the deal. He had a hell of a series, by the way, but he cemented this with I'll play it for you, but this was the dagger that sent the Dodgers packing.
He's 1-strike pitch. Swinging a fly ball, center field deep. Bellinger going back to the warning track, to the wall. It's a grand slam. Howie Kendrick has done it. They're going crazy in the Nationals dugout. Howie Kendrick with a grand slam here in the 10th inning of Game 5. The Nationals 7, the Dodgers 3. Do you believe it?
Okay, there's no way we could do this without giving you one of my favorite all-time broadcasters. Really hated the fact that their games always went on during the Braves games growing up. Even when I got access to Milwaukee radio, I never got a chance to hear the great Bob Uker give calls on a regular basis. But when they would play the Braves, I would always flip over when I had the ability to listen to the Milwaukee broadcast. Bob Uker was absolutely outstanding. Now, this doesn't really give you a sense of who he is, because Bob Uker was the best in downtime, in games that were not necessarily close, because he could fill it in with his one-of-a-kind personality, unbelievable sense of humor. But I figured that we got to play a Bob Uker great, and this is a great one. This is 2011. Nigel Morgan is at the plate for the Milwaukee Brewers, and it's the bottom of the 10th inning. It's Game 5 NLDS, win or go home, and they have a chance to advance to the NLCS, and here is the great Bob Uker on the call.
1 ball, 2 strikes on
Schwartz, who saved 45 during the regular season. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Morgan waits, and the pitch low and inside and saved by Blanco. 2-2 now on Niger. Great speed at second in Gomez. Morgan stopping out. Now he's back in. Puts glove on knee. Has a new sign from Blanco. He's ready and delivers. Morgan a smash up the middle. Base hit to center. Here comes Gomez. Around third. A throw and the Brewers win. The Brewers are moving on a base hit by Niger Morgan. He's being mobbed. Wow, what a scene. Niger Morgan, who has delivered so many times this year, delivers a base hit to center field to score. Carlos Gomez and the Brewers have beaten Arizona. What a scene out here. Morgan mobbed at the mound. Wow. Against J.J. Putz, one of the best. Morgan delivers a key single to center to score. Carlos Gomez, who reached on a one-out base hit to left. He scored, beating the throw from Chris Young, and the Brewers are moving on. Wow, what a way to finish this one.
Okay, here's some quick clips. We're going to start off with Dwayne Kuiper, play-by-play man for the San Francisco Giants.
High drive. Left field. It is out of here. He hits it high. He hits it deep. It is out of.
Here's the great Gary Thorne. You'll probably recognize his voice from longtime broadcasting ESPN. About 20 years ago, early 2000s, he did a ton of hockey, and he also did some Monday night, Wednesday night baseball for ESPN. But now this is with the Baltimore Orioles, Gary Thorne.
And he clouts that one way back in left field, and goodbye, home run. Problems with runners on. That ball is launched in the air. I don't believe it. Way back. Goodbye, home run.
This is from the SNY crew, and this is a funny one because they were kind of ho-hum in the middle of a conversation. Bartolo Colon comes to the plate. This is a famous home run nowadays, but here is their call for Bartolo Colon slamming one out of the building in San Diego.
For his first hit of the year, he drives one deep left field. Back goes Upton, back near the wall. It's out of here. Bartolo has done it.
Okay, now we're going to play 3 in a row. You got Michael Kay from the Yankees, Matt Vasgersian with the Athletics, and I believe he may even have one in there for the Padres. He's a Southern California guy that is on MLB Network quite a bit. And then from the Los Angeles Angels, Victor Rojas, and he has some pretty good calls as well.
That one's drilled deep to left field. There it goes. See ya. Tie game.
Jones with a high drive to left field. Gardner back, and that one is gone. Santa Maria with the base hit today. There goes the runner. There goes Correa again. Santa Maria.
3-2 on the way. Trout drives one out to left center field. That ball is crushed. Gone. A big fly for Mike Trout. 1-1 pitch. Fastball drilled to deep left. Get out of here. Gone. Big fly for Albert Pujols.
Okay, here's some quick clips. We're going to start off with Dwayne Kuiper, play-by-play man for the San Francisco Giants.
Left field. It is out of here. He hits it high. He hits it deep. It is out of.
Here's the great Gary Thorne. You'll probably recognize his voice from longtime broadcasting ESPN. About 20 years ago, early 2000s, he did a ton of hockey, and he also did some Monday night, Wednesday night baseball for ESPN. But now this is with the Baltimore Orioles, Gary Thorne.
And he clouts that one way back in left field, and goodbye, home run. Problems with runners on. That ball is launched in the air. I don't believe it. Way back. Goodbye, home run.
This is from the SNY crew, and this is a funny one because they were kind of ho-hum in the middle of a conversation. Bartolo Colon comes to the plate. This is a famous home run nowadays, but here is their call for Bartolo Colon slamming one out of the building in San Diego.
For his first hit of the year, he drives one deep left field. That goes Upton, back near the wall. It's out of here. Bartolo has done it.
Okay, now we're going to play three in a row. You got Michael Kay from the Yankees, Matt Vasgersian with the Athletics, and I believe he may even have one in there for the Padres. He's a Southern California guy that is on MLB Network quite a bit. And then from the Los Angeles Angels, Victor Rojas, and he has some pretty good calls as well.
That one's drilled deep to left field. There it goes. See ya. Tie game.
Jones with a high drive to left field. Gardner back, and that one is gone. Santa Maria with a base hit today. There goes the runner. There goes Correa again. Santa Maria. 3-2 on the way. Trout drives one out to left center field. That ball is crushed. Gone. A big fly for Mike Trout. 1-1 pitch. Fastball drilled to deep left. Get out of here. Gone. Big fly for Albert Pujols.
Okay, to finish this off, we are going to play a couple of the greats. We're going to start off with Vin Scully and the walk-off shot with Kirk Gibson, 1988 World Series. Improbable. Kirk Gibson coming up against the unhittable Dennis Eckersley, and still one of my all-time favorite calls. And then we go to the radio call of your Atlanta Braves when Sid slid, Skip carried the whole 9 yards. And at the very, very end, we sign off. You're going to hear the Brooklyn Dodgers radio call. And this was in the infancy of radio, just a very small clip. And basically always want to pay respect to where we all came from, which was essentially the Northeast radio began it all with Major League Baseball radio, college football radio, and what is now radio in the NFL and whatnot. Okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and play that clip. Before we do, want to get out of here and wish you a happy Super Sunday, because no better day on the sports calendar than Super Bowl Sunday, in my opinion. And it's really because the championship is being played in one game. So you don't get these same feelings, these same emotions build up in the World Series, NBA, NHL championships, because there are so many games being played, and you never know when the final game, unless a Game 7 of the World Series still trumps all. But we don't get those every year, so the Super Bowl is still king. That being said, hopefully y'all are going to have some good grub and good friends and family over. It's what we do every year. And enjoy your day, and when you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll be less than 24 hours away from pitchers and catchers reporting to your Atlanta Braves. And most of Major League Baseball. Some are coming in on Wednesday and Thursday, but primarily Tuesday's the day. And a quick reminder, you're going to start seeing the broadcast pop up. If you're ever wondering what games we're going to have, you're going to see them in posts weekly. We're going to have a weekly post that puts up what games we're going to have. We're always going to have the Braves games, but I'm talking about the games outside of that. But we're planning on doing over 300 broadcasts this year as far as live game broadcasts. So we're cutting back on the shows themselves because we're going to give you more of the live game broadcasts. They seem to be a lot more popular. So that's what we're going into this year. We're still going to be doing some Once Upon a Pastimes and whatnot, but the Braves Country Todays are going to move to the beginning of the broadcast. We'll do it a few times a week where we do it just before first pitch, and you'll see how it unfolds. But the daily, the weekly drops, you'll see them start popping up, and we won't end up doing the out-of-town doubleheader release until the week before, because there's a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is if we have a chance to bring you a really cool pitching matchup, that's the one we're going to lean with. Typically, it's going to be a couple of teams, or at least one team, that is of relevance in the playoff push. But if you get a really good pitching matchup, so like let's say if it ends up being Tarek Skubal versus Paul Skeens, well, we're going to run at the opportunity if it falls on the right day. So there you have that. Have a great Super Bowl Sunday, y'all. We'll see ya. Go baseball.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
A lot of room in right center. If he hits one there, we can dance in the streets. The 2-1. Swung line drive left field. One run is in. Here comes Breen. Here's the throw to the plate. He is safe. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win.
And we're looking forward to a ball game here this afternoon that will send one of these two into the World Series naturally. I'll sit back and check on the records of the pitchers, and we'll be ready to go.